4 times. Something was very wrong, and I didn't understand until too late. My name is Marcus. I'm 28 years old, and I need to tell you about 4 separate occasions when something felt fundamentally wrong, and it took me too long to understand what was actually happening. 4 times when my instinct was screaming at me to do something, but I was too confused, too skeptical of my own mind, too willing to believe there was a rational explanation. 4 times when the difference between life and death came down to seconds and pure luck. The scariest part about these stories isn't the moments of danger themselves. It's the moments before, the moments when I knew something was off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what. The moments when I second-guessed myself, when I rationalized away the warning signs. If you think you would react perfectly in a dangerous situation, these stories will change your mind. If you think your instincts would protect you, think again. Because predators don't always announce themselves. They test the waters first. They watch, they wait. And sometimes they make mistakes. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because what you're about to hear is about the moments when everything changes, when the world suddenly feels unsafe in ways you never expected. These are 4 times something was very wrong and I didn't understand until too late. Story 1. The Cabin in the Cascades. I was spending a week in Washington at a cabin in the Cascades. It was pretty far out of the major cities, down a long dirt road, with dense forest all around. Winter was just starting, so there was a little bit of snow, but nothing too much. The first 3 days were great. It was peaceful, quiet, relaxing, the kind of place where you can actually think, where you can disconnect from everything and just exist. But midway through the 4th day, there was a knock at the door. I had no idea who it was or who it could have been. I walked over and opened the door. There wasn't any other way for me to see the porch from inside the cabin. There was a man standing there. He had a thick winter jacket on and a black wool hat. His face was pale with red cheeks, and snow was sticking to his clothes. He had clearly been outside for a while. "How can I help you?" I asked. The man gave a friendly smile and said he was just a bit lost. He wanted to know the way back into town. I was confused immediately. Was he trying to walk the 1-hour drive to town in the cold and snow? And how did he even get out here in the first place? Take a left here and follow it to the main road, I said. It's a straight shot from there. I figured it wasn't any of my business, so I just told him what he asked for. He smiled and nodded. There was a strange pause for a few seconds. He just stood there, and neither of us spoke. I got uncomfortable, so I finished the interaction by closing the door. I heard his boots walk off the porch soon after. It was an interesting interaction for sure, but I went back to what I was doing and forgot about it. Not too long after several hours passed, the light snowfall from earlier had started to pick up, which made me a little nervous because I wasn't sure how my car would handle the dirt roads with thick snow. To keep an eye on the weather, I went to the back door and pulled the curtains back so I could have a view from the living room. When I did, I was kind of startled. There were shoe prints in the snow, walking around the back of the cabin. Again, I was so far out that anyone just walking around here was very strange. It was hard to tell how fresh the prints were, though. I wasn't sure how long the snowfall had picked up for, so it could have been as long as several hours ago, or as soon as just a few minutes ago. My mind immediately thought back to the man who came by the door earlier. Had he gone around the cabin before going up to the door? Maybe he thought the cabin might be empty and was snooping around to find out. That would be really creepy. I felt really uneasy after seeing those shoe prints in the snow. It didn't help that the sun had already set either. It was too dark, too cold, too windy outside to even try to look around. I closed the curtains and went around to make sure all the doors were locked. Then I turned off all the lights and went into the bedroom. There wasn't a TV in there, so I just pulled up a video to watch on my laptop as I laid in bed. I was trying to relax, trying to shake the uneasy feeling I had. It took a while, like probably an hour before I was feeling better. The steady sound of the snow outside, the darkness of the cabin room, it started to make me sleepy. I shut the laptop screen and started getting ready for bed. That's when a knock came from the front door. I physically jumped. I stood still for a moment while I just felt my mind go blank from the sudden fear that came over me. They knocked again. "Hey, it's me again," a voice called out. "I'm still lost. It's cold out here. Can you please help me?" It was the man who stopped by earlier. Why the hell was he still around here? I opened the bedroom door so I could listen better and looked out into the main area of the cabin. It was really dark, and the man continuously knocking was extremely unsettling. But then, after I don't know, maybe 30 seconds, the knocking stopped. The wind outside felt like it picked up. It was the only thing I could hear. I really wanted to know if he left or where he went. I quietly crept out into the main room, which I knew had all the curtains and blinds closed, so he shouldn't be able to see me without opening the door. My only option was to look out one of the windows, and I didn't have a clear view of the porch, but I could see the front of the cabin, leading up to the road. I pushed the curtain aside and looked. I could see a set of footprints going up to the porch, but none leaving. He must still be at the door. I walked back and got my phone. Service was good enough to call 911. They estimated it would be 45 minutes before they would make it. I locked myself in the bedroom and waited. 10 minutes went by with not a single sound, which was really eerie. Knowing he had to be just silently standing outside the door, all I heard was the heavy wind smacking against the windows. Then there was a sudden thud against the cabin. I had no idea what it was, but it sounded like it came from the front of the cabin. And it was pretty loud, but then it was silent again. I was shaking and terrified. Time seemed to move extremely slow. Eventually, red and blue lights began flashing outside the windows. Feeling relieved, I got up and started walking to the front door, until I heard the officer yelling to get down. I listened as he kept yelling, and there was clearly something going on outside. Then that thud sounded through the cabin again, followed by the officer yelling once more. Turned out the guy actually never left. He had climbed onto the roof of the cabin, and I guess he was just sitting up there, waiting. Maybe waiting for me to forget about it and try to find a way in the middle of the night. I don't know. The officer made him get down and arrested him for trespassing. Other than that, the guy did well not to admit to trying anything. But it seemed like he had been outside around my cabin for the entire day, which is really disturbing. What he was really trying to do is unknown, but it likely was something really awful. Straight to the ice cream shop. I work at a 24/7 ice cream shop. It's a really small place, like one room that maybe 10 customers could stand in at a time. The place was actually pretty popular in our small town, though. It was a common hangout spot for high schoolers because the parking lot was pretty big and had unoccupied or abandoned shops next to it. It was like a strip mall, except only the ice cream shop was still open. Usually the crowds were gone by 10, and it would just be the occasional group of kids stopping by in the middle of the night. I worked part-time overnight shifts, typically from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. This night I got in and did the usual cleaning up, the mess the previous workers left for me. It only took about 30 minutes. So after that, I just sat back and waited. Around 1 a.m., a group of teens came in, but other than that, it was dead. Halfway through my shift, I got so bored that I decided to do some extra cleaning up around the back. I tossed a bunch of garbage out and headed outside to toss it into the dumpster. The dumpster was actually in front of the shop, kind of on the side of the big parking lot, near the other abandoned shops. I walked over and tossed the trash in. The night was quiet. Not even any cars out driving around. As I walked back through, I noticed a light flicker in one of the abandoned shops. I thought it had to be a reflection of a car passing by, or something. But after looking at the road and again seeing no cars, I got really confused. Was I just seeing things? I walked slower, keeping my eyes on the front windows of the store, just waiting for something. Then it happened again. A light shined past the windows for only a few seconds. It looked kind of like someone shining a flashlight around, deep inside the back of the store. After that brief sighting, though, it didn't happen again, so I really had no way to confirm anything. The only part that kind of shook me about this was that the light was in the abandoned building that was attached to the ice cream shop. So it was just on the other side of the wall where I worked. I reassured myself that if it was someone in there, it was probably just some kids exploring the empty building, completely harmless. There really wasn't much else to do aside from wait around for the rest of my shift. It was about 2 a.m. now. I leaned against the counter and just stared out the front windows, spacing out, when I heard something beside me. I looked at the wall, and it sounded again, against the other side of the wall. It was relatively quiet. I only noticed it because the night was completely silent. I quickly connected the dots between the sound and the light I saw in that building, and I was 99% sure someone had broken into there. I thought about possibly calling the cops, just to let them know. But my train of thought was interrupted when a customer walked in. It was always strange when a single customer came in the middle of the night, like with no friends or anything. But this guy was even more odd. He was in his 40s, and he looked very unkempt. Long, untrimmed beard, greasy hair, a tired look all over his face. As he walked up to the counter, his stench was almost unbearable. "Welcome in. What can I get for you?" I said, trying to be professional. He looked at me, then at the display case, then back up at me. After a few seconds of him not saying anything, he smiled, backed up, and left out the door. I whispered, "What the hell?" under my breath. Really creeped out by that encounter. It was insanely odd that along with whatever was going on in the empty building, this was making this night really unnerving. I wasn't really sure what to do, aside from just hope I was overthinking it, and wait for my shift to end, to clear my head a bit, and just have a break from it all. I decided to take my lunch. Usually I just sit in the back and eat, but I felt like getting some fresh air and getting out of that place. I grabbed my lunch bag and walked out to my car. I sat in there and ate while looking out the window. A few minutes passed. The night was still really quiet, and the light in the building was nowhere to be seen. Then I saw someone come around the corner of the shop, followed by another person. I recognized the jacket. It was the same strange guy that came in only a few minutes ago. The other guy I hadn't seen before. but he had something in his hand. I was far away, but I was reasonably certain that it was a flashlight. I felt a lump in my throat as I watched the men go into the ice cream shop. They didn't look like customers looking for someone to take their order. They looked like angry men searching for their victim. I dialed 911. The men jumped over the counter and looked in the back room, coming back out 30 seconds later and running out of the shop. They didn't steal anything. They were definitely looking for me. They ran around the back of the building and disappeared. When cops got there, the men were gone. But one of the abandoned stores had a door busted open, so those men definitely had been in there. What they were doing is still unknown, but it seemed like the one guy came into the shop just to see if I was alone, then went back to get his buddy. But by chance, I happened to take my lunch in my car. If not, I don't know what would have happened. Story 3, the apartment building. I live in a pretty old apartment. It was just cheap enough for me to live alone in it. So that was the only reason I lived there. It definitely had its issues, though. Anyway, this was a regular night after getting out of work. It was late, but I had actually gotten out of work 2 hours early. So I got home and heated up dinner, then sat on the couch to watch TV for the rest of the night. I was really tired already and wasn't planning on staying up late. The dim lighting and the soft TV only made me more sleepy. I think I was only home for an hour before calling it a night. I turned off the TV, went to my bedroom, and fell asleep within 5 minutes. I didn't remember the weather being windy that night, and I only mentioned that because a few hours later I woke up to a creaking sound. The building was old, so any light wind would often make it sway and cause these echoing creaks and rumbles through the walls. But again, I didn't think it was windy out, and the creak I thought I heard wasn't the same as it usually was. As all these thoughts ran through my head, the creaking started again. And it didn't stop. It was almost in this rhythmic pattern. One creak followed by a second of silence. Then another creak again, and again, sounding like it was from somewhere on the other side of my apartment. I got out of bed. My heart was pacing, but I still wasn't totally convinced that it wasn't the old building. I opened my bedroom door. There was a hallway that led down to the front door, and at the end on either side was the kitchen and living room. I looked down the hallway. I could now hear that the creaking was coming from the left side. It took me a moment, but I started to realize the sound was moving across the floor. And by the time I noticed it getting louder, I couldn't even react before seeing a figure suddenly appear at the end of the hallway. My entire body tensed up and froze, but the man didn't look down at me. They kept walking slowly across the end of the hallway. They just stared ahead, never looking down the hallway. Adrenaline pumped through me, and I moved back around the corner into my room. I didn't close the door, scared of making a sound. The creaking continued through the kitchen a few times. They stopped, and it sounded like they opened and closed a few of the cabinets before walking again. My heart was racing even faster. How did he get in? And it had to be only a matter of time before he came walking down the hallway. Just as I was thinking this, I saw his shadow move toward the end of the hallway, but again, he walked past it. The creaking moved through the living room, and then I heard the soft squeak of them sitting on my couch. Everything about this made no sense, making it even more horrifying. I crept over to my bed and got my phone, then texted 911. I was still too scared to call. and risk them hearing me. The next 3 or 4 minutes were just full of tension and anxiety, knowing this guy was just on the other side of my apartment, sitting on my couch, and could at any moment get up and walk into my room. But he never did. I got a text that the officers were in the building and coming up to my door, so I gathered up my courage and sprinted down the hallway and opened the door for them. They stormed in and tackled the guy, who had barely even gotten up from the couch. I didn't recognize the man at all. Apparently, he climbed up the side of the building and onto my balcony on the 2nd story, which didn't even have a lock on the sliding door. It seems almost impossible that this wasn't a specific break-in at my place. But the man denied everything, said he was just trying to rob a random apartment, even though he had taken nothing, and didn't even have a backpack to haul stuff in. I mean, he even sat on my couch and just chilled there, like he was waiting for something. Plus, it would have been way easier to rob a 1st-story unit. Part of me wonders if me getting out of work early had anything to do with this. Like, did the guy somehow know my schedule? Is that why he was sitting on the couch, thinking I wasn't home yet and waiting for me to arrive? There's really no way to know. I think it's the uncertainty of what the man was doing that really makes this event so disturbing. Like, would he try it again in the future? And was he really targeting me? Or was I just incredibly unlucky? I'm really hoping I don't have to come back with another story in the coming years. Story 4. The Forest Fire. This was at the beginning of March last year. It was still winter, but the snow and cold around here had mostly died down. The ground was still frosted in the mornings most days, but it was just warming up enough for me to start getting back into my outdoor hobbies. Hiking, camping, biking, all that sort of stuff that I had to put on hold for the last 3 months. This day I drove out to a place I'd been to just last fall. I liked it because it was far out and unpopular, just a nice place to relax and enjoy the scenery alone. I parked on the side of the road and hiked down about 45 minutes to the campsite. It wasn't more than a small dirt circle with a bit of an overlook of the forest. I set my things up. The sun was coming down already. I always liked getting to the campsite late and just eating and going to sleep right away. I went out to grab some sticks to prep for a small fire, and after that I walked to the overlook to watch the sunset. I was only sitting there for a little bit, like a minute or so, before I noticed a fire below me. It was down the hill, not too far away, sitting among the trees. I could see it pretty clearly, and what was really strange was that there was nothing else there. No tent, no chairs, and no people around the campfire. The campfire was left completely unattended. That was not only really dangerous, but also really odd. A fire doesn't burn forever, so someone had to have lit it up recently, only to leave it. I thought they would have to be back at some point. So I sat there and watched it for a while. Probably an hour passed. The sun had fully set, and there were no signs of anyone down there. Strangely, the fire seemed to pick up, though, almost like they had put full logs under the sticks, so that it would burn longer and larger, like a bonfire. I was getting worried, especially with me being so close. I decided to go down and just check in on it, and maybe put it out myself if nobody else was there. It was only about a 2-minute walk to get there, but with the dark out, I had to use my flashlight. Approaching the campfire, it was very quiet. The sound of the roaring flame, crackling and flocking in the wind, was the only sound. I walked up to it. The flame was already too high and nearly out of control, and yet there were still more logs under it that had yet to light. "Who the hell did this?" I said out loud. There was no way this was an accident. I started grabbing the wet soil and tossing it on top of the wood. It was working decently, bringing the flame down enough for me to reach under and remove the larger unlit logs. It took a good 5 minutes, but eventually I got it done. It was suddenly so quiet and dark. I turned my flashlight back on and began walking back. I decided I wasn't comfortable staying here, not with whoever was out there. I got back and started packing, and midway through I heard footsteps nearby. I looked out and saw the outline of someone walking up to my campsite. I stood up and faced them. "Hey, did you light that fire?" I called out. The person stopped and stood there, maybe 50 yards away, still covered by the dark. "Hello? I see you out there. Can you just answer my question?" I yelled again, but got no response. An eerie feeling came over me. I needed to leave now. I kept packing. All the while that person stayed there, watching me the whole time. I finally tossed my bag on my shoulders and started walking. They stayed there for as long as I could see them. I got back to my car and reported it to the police. Everything about that situation is still unknown, though. Who was that out there? Were they trying to start a huge forest fire? Or had they seen me arrive and for some reason built it to get my attention? Thankfully, I didn't stay to find out. Epilogue. The pattern I've spent the last 2 years thinking about these 4 incidents: the man at the cabin who climbed onto the roof, the 2 men searching the ice cream shop, the intruder sitting on my couch, the person watching me in the forest. And I've come to understand something that terrifies me. All of these incidents followed a pattern. In each case, someone was testing my response. Someone was observing me. Someone was learning my habits. In the cabin, the man came to the door first, to see if I would answer, to get a sense of who was inside. Then he came back, to see if I had forgotten about him, to see if I would answer again. At the ice cream shop, the first man came in to confirm I was alone, then went to get his partner. In the apartment, the intruder didn't attack immediately. He walked through my space. He sat on my couch. He was waiting for something. In the forest, someone had built an enormous fire, not to hurt me, but maybe to get my attention, to see how I would respond. These weren't random attacks. These were calculated, deliberate, specific. And the only reason I'm alive to tell these stories is because I got lucky. The police arrived at the cabin before anything else happened. I took my lunch in my car instead of the back room. I texted 911 instead of waiting for the man to find me. I decided to go down and check on a fire that most people would have left alone. In each case, a different decision would have changed everything. Here's what I want you to understand. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Trust that feeling. Don't rationalize it away. Don't convince yourself that you're being paranoid, because the people who prey on others are counting on you to second-guess yourself. They're counting on you to be polite. They're counting on you to give them another chance, to explain things away, to believe in the best in people. But sometimes there is no best in people. Sometimes there's just predatory behavior, and the only defense you have is your instinct and your willingness to act on it. Stay safe, and remember, if something feels wrong, you don't owe anyone a second chance. You don't owe anyone politeness. You only owe yourself your survival.